Welcome all in this lecture of biophysics. In this particular lecture, I am going to discuss about the energy budget required to build a cell. So basically, we will consider an E. coli cell and we will estimate that how much energy is required to construct a E. coli cell. But before listening this lecture, I will request the viewers to go through the previous lectures, that is about the energy and life of a cell. So those lectures will help you to understand this lecture more clearly. And you should also have some knowledge about the number and size of some biomolecules in a cell. So I have also discussed about this topic, that is number and size of some particular biomolecules in a cell in one of my lecture. So I request you to listen those lectures before listening to this particular topic. The concept of the estimate we undertake here is represented by the analogy of considering the cost of constructing a building. So suppose you are going to construct a building, so you will make a building. So in that case, the overall costs can be subdivided into the cost of the physical construction of the materials themselves, that is you need some materials and these materials should be constructed, that is we are saying that is cost of the physical construction materials. And secondly, there is another cost, that is cost of the labor required to put them together. So there is some labor charge to put them together, that is all raw construction materials should be put together so that a cell can be constructed, just like a building can be constructed. So we are thinking the construction of cell in this way. Now in the cell, both the construction material, so what are the construction materials in a cell? So those are in the form of organic molecules. And the energy source, energy source means you need some energy to put the materials in order so that a cell can be constructed. So you need some construction materials in the form of organic molecules and you need some energy source, and all these are ultimately derived from the nutrients taken by the cell. As with our earlier discussions regarding the estimates regarding the E. coli cells, so we have already estimated the number and size of the biomolecules in E. coli cell. So in that case, we have considered that cells growing in a medium where glucose is its sole source of carbon and biosynthetic energy. And we have estimated that the total number of carbon atoms required to construct a new E. coli cell is approximately 10 to the power 10. So these are the total number of carbon atoms that you require to construct a cell, and this number is almost 10 to the power 10. So you need 10 to the power 10 carbon atoms for constructing an E. coli cell. Now we know that there are 6 carbon atoms per glucose molecule. Now if we divide 10 to the power 10 divided by 6, so it will give you roughly 2 into 10 to the power 9. So you need 2 into 10 to the power 9 glucose molecules simply to provide the raw construction materials for doubling its mass so that it can divide. So you need this particular value of the glucose molecule, that is 2 into 10 to the power 9 number of glucose molecules, and these numbers actually will provide you the raw construction materials for doubling its mass so that it can divide. Now, you need some additional glucose molecule. Why? Because basically these 2 into 10 to the power 9 glucose molecules will be used as the raw construction materials. Now the question is that how many additional glucose molecules must the cell take up and convert in order to have the biosynthetic energy required to, to refashion all those carbon skeletons into cellular materials. So, 2 into 10 to the power 9 glucose molecules will be used to provide the raw construction materials, but you need some additional energy again in the form of glucose molecules. So, you need some additional energy and this additional energy will be used to refashion all those carbon skeletons into cellular material. That is, you have to make some particular cellular materials so that a cell can be constructed. So, you need some additional energy. In E. coli, there are 7 major classes of macromolecular components whose synthesis we must consider. So, what are the 7 classes of macromolecules? These are protein, DNA, RNA, phospholipid, lipopolysaccharide, peptidoglycan and glycogen. So, these are the 7 classes of biomolecules. Because each of these kinds of components involves its own elaborate biosynthesis pathways, we must consider them separately. Rather than going through all of them in this particular lecture, we will start with the illustrative example of proteins and briefly discuss about the DNA and RNA. For biosynthesis of proteins, when glucose is the sole carbon source, the glucose carbon skeletons must first be converted into the amino acids. So, this is the first step. When proteins will be synthesized, at first the glucose carbon skeletons must first be converted into the form of amino acids, and then those amino acids must be polymerized to form the new proteins. So, at first there is the conversion of glucose into the amino acid, and in the second step these amino acids are polymerized to form new proteins. Now, amino acids vary significantly in their structure and some are more complicated to synthesize with respect to the others. Over the past 100 years, the metabolic pathways for synthesis of each of these amino acids have been studied and the responsible enzymes identified using methods such as the pulse chase method and generation of auxotrophic mutants which need to be fed precursor molecules to survive. All of the amino acid synthetic pathways are connected directly or indirectly to the glycolytic pathway. Now, in the previous lecture, we have discussed about the glycolytic pathway. So, similarly, all the amino acid synthetic pathways are connected directly or indirectly to the glycolytic pathway that we have discussed earlier. Indeed, all metabolites in the cell are connected to all others through the elaborate metabolic web, which can be graphically represented in a diagram that covers most of a wall and that resembles like the Tokyo subway map but is substantially more intricate. Alanine, for example, can be synthesized from pyruvate in a single step by a single enzyme. So, alanine is one kind of amino acid. Similarly, tryptophan, in contrast, requires the coordinated action of 12 enzymes. The net synthesis cost for making each of the amino acids is summarized in a table that I will show you now. So, let us look at the table. So, this is the table. You see, in this particular column, different types of amino acids are written. So you see that is in the first row it is alanine, then arginine, then asparagine. In this way we have written different types of amino acid. In the second column you see that it has been written as abundance. So abundance are molecules per cell. So for each of the amino acid the molecules per cell is provided. In the third column you see the heading is glucose equivalent. I will make you clear that is what do you mean by glucose equivalent. Next is ATP equivalent, and next is again ATP equivalent. So the first case is for aerobic condition and the second case is for anaerobic condition. So this is the chart for ATP equivalent of different types of amino acids. Now you see that is amino acids. So this particular table, amino acid abundance and cost of synthesis for making the amino acids under both aerobic and anaerobic growth conditions is given. Now what is glucose equivalent? Glucose equivalents refer to the number of glucose molecules that must be used to generate the carbon skeletons of each amino acid. I am again repeating, that is glucose equivalents refers to the number of glucose molecules that must be used to generate the carbon skeletons of each amino acids. For example, you need 1 mole of alanine, an amino acid containing 3 carbons, and this particular amino acid alanine can be synthesized from 1/2 mole of glucose. So we know that a glucose is a sugar containing 6 carbon atoms. So for the synthesis of alanine you need 0.5 mole of glucose. So this is what is known by glucose equivalents. So you see the table again, that is in the first row the amino acid is alanine, and you see the column glucose equivalents, it has been written as 0.5. So 0.5 mole glucose is needed for the synthesis of alanine. Similarly, ATP equivalents refers to the approximate amount of biosynthetic energy required to synthesize that particular amino acid from glucose as a starting material. But this particular value can be either negative or positive. A negative value indicates that synthesis of the amino acid from glucose is favorable. So energy is generated rather than consumed. Now you see that for each of the amino acids ATP equivalent is given for aerobic or anaerobic condition, and you look at the table, that is in some cases negative sign is given and in some cases positive sign is given. So this, from this table we can estimate that is how many glucose molecules are required for the synthesis of the amino acid and what is the energy cost for the synthesis of that particular kind of amino acid, and this synthesis cost is given in terms of the ATP units. Now, for purposes of calculating the energy budget, we must also take into account the fact that some amino acids are much more abundant than the others. If you look at the table that I have shown carefully, then you will see that is in the first column the value of the abundance is different for different types of amino acid. For example, glycine is approximately 10-fold more abundant than tryptophan. By multiplying the energetic cost of making each amino acid by its relative abundance in the cell, we can estimate that the average energetic cost to synthesize an amino acid is roughly 1.2 ATP equivalent for cells growing aerobically and 4.7 ATP equivalents for cells growing anaerobically. So, what we have done actually, there are different types of amino acids and synthesis cost for different types of amino acids are different. But what we can do, we can make an average, and if we make an average, but we will make the average by considering the relative abundance of those amino acids. You have to multiply the relative abundance with the ATP equivalent for the synthesis of that particular amino acid. So, if we make an average by considering all types of amino acid, then we can say that the average energetic cost to synthesize an amino acid is roughly 1.2 ATP equivalent for the cells growing aerobically and 4.7 ATP equivalents for the cells growing anaerobically. After the amino acids have been synthesized, they must be strung together to make proteins. This painstaking assembly work requires a large input energy to the tune of roughly 4 ATP equivalents for each amino acids, including the cost to attach the amino acids to tRNAs and to power the movement of the ribosome. As a result, the cost of adding each amino acid is 5.2 ATP equivalents. So, it means that after the amino acids have been synthesized, then what you have to do? You have to join those amino acids to construct a protein. So, joining means basically a polymerization process. Through this polymerization process, amino acids join with each other and proteins are made. So, for joining those amino acids into a protein, you again need some energy. And what is the value of the energy? This is 4 ATP equivalents. So, 1.2 ATP equivalents you need to synthesis the amino acids, and 4 ATP equivalents you need for joining the amino acids into a assembly. So, all total you need 4 plus 1.2, that is 5.2 ATP equivalents. So, we are saying in this way, that is, as a result the cost of adding each amino acids is 5.2 ATP equivalents, corresponding to the 1.2 ATP equivalents it costs to make the average amino acid. So, 1.2 ATP equivalent is for the production of the amino acid, and 4 ATP equivalents it takes to add the amino acid onto the polypeptide chain. That means for joining those amino acids in a chain like structure, you again need 4 ATP equivalents of energy. And multiplying this value, that is 5.2 ATP, by the total number of amino acids that need to be strung together to make a cell, we can find that is protein energy cost. Protein energy cost, that is all total protein energy cost, will be 5.2 ATP. 5.2 ATP is the all total energy required to make a protein. Then we are multiplying with 300. You see this factor 300, but why we have written 300? Because 300 is the number of amino acids in an average protein. So, if you consider a protein, so that protein will actually consists of total 300 amino acids. So, therefore, to make a protein, I am multiplying the cost of making the protein into the number of amino acids, that is 300, because 5.2 ATP is required for the synthesis of the amino acids and joining of the amino acids into a peptide chain. So, that is why 5.2 ATP is multiplied with the total number of amino acids in a protein. Total number of amino acids in a protein is 300. Then again you are multiplying with the factor 3 into 10 to the power 6. Why 3 into 10 to the power 6? Because in a bacteria, E. coli bacteria, in a particular cell, there is all total 3 into 10 to the power 6 number of proteins. This number we have estimated in our earlier lecture, that is about number and the size of different types of biomolecules. So there we have estimated this particular number. So in this way you can calculate the protein energy cost. So protein energy cost is 4.5 into 10 to the power 9 ATP equivalent. So this is the protein energy cost. It is possible to perform similar calculations for each of the other 6 classes of macromolecules that we have already said in the beginning of the lecture. Interestingly, while we found for proteins that synthesis of the amino acid precursors is relatively energetically inexpensive and assembly into proteins relatively costly, because we have learned that is for the synthesis of the amino acids the energy is 1.2 ATP equivalent, whereas for the assembly of those amino acids in the form of protein, in that case the energy required is 4.2 ATP, that is it requires more energy. The situation is the opposite for DNA and RNA. In that case, that is in the case of DNA and RNA, the energy required to synthesize a nucleotide triphosphate precursor is large, that is synthesis cost of the nucleotide precursor is large, and it is of the order of 10 to 20 ATP equivalents depending upon the growth condition. But the additional cost required to assemble them is small, that is for joining them together in the form of a polymer, that particular energy is small with respect to the synthesis energy, whereas amino acid synthesis consume less than a quarter of the total energy required to make a protein. If you make a ratio, the ratio means 1.2 ATP and 4 ATP. So from that ratio you can say that synthesis process, that is synthesis of the amino acids process, consumes less than a quarter of the total energy required to make a protein. So if you say that is total energy is 5.2 ATP, and as it requires only 1.2 ATP for making the proteins, that is why we are saying that is less than a quarter of the total energy is required to make the proteins. Nucleotide synthesis requires nearly 90% of the energy needed to make nucleic acid. So, in case of DNA and RNA, this particular synthesis process consumes almost 90% of the total energy that is required to produce DNA and RNA. Now, I will show you a table that summarizes the biosynthetic cost for each of the major classes of macromolecules. So, let us look at this table. You see this table, this is the biosynthetic cost in ATP equivalents to synthesize the macromolecules of a single E. coli cell. So, in the left column there is the different classes of the macromolecules. So, you see their protein, DNA, RNA, phospholipid, lipopolysaccharide, peptidoglycan and glycogen, that is 7 classes of macromolecules. And in the right hand side column the biosynthetic cost, that is the energy in ATP equivalent, energy in the unit of ATP equivalent is given. So, this energy you require to synthesis those classes of macromolecule. For example, for the synthesis of the protein you need 4.5 into 10 to the power 9 equivalent of energy. For DNA you require 3.5 into 10 to the power 8 ATP equivalent of energy, and so on. So, in this table you can find the energy cost for different types of macromolecules. As we have discussed above, the exact numbers vary depending upon the growth condition. So, we have estimated the energy cost, but we have to say that is the exact numbers vary depending upon the growth conditions. But this serve as a reasonable estimate for our standard E. coli growing under standard condition. Now, we know that an E. coli cell must take up roughly 2 into 10 to the power 9 glucose molecules for building materials to double its mass. We have already said in the beginning of the lecture, that is an E. coli cell must take roughly 2 into 10 to the power 9 glucose molecules for building materials. So these 2 into 10 to the power 9 glucose molecules you require for the building materials to double its mass. Growing with maximum efficiency under aerobic condition, a single molecule of glucose can generate up to 30 molecules of ATP. So you see that a single molecule of glucose can generate 30 molecules of ATP with carbon dioxide as the waste product. Comparing the total amount of biosynthetic energy required by adding up all the components in the table 5.2, about 10 to the power 10 ATP equivalents are required. So that means we have already shown in the previous table, that is how much energy you require for synthesis of the different types of macromolecules. So you have to add them up. If you add them up, then you will see that about 10 to the power 10 ATP equivalents energy is required for the synthesis of these macromolecules. 10 to the power 10 ATP equivalents are required. Now you see that is from a single molecule of glucose, how much ATP is generated? 30 molecules of ATP are generated. Now you see that is total biosynthetic energy cost is how much? 10 to the power 10 ATP. This is the total biosynthetic energy cost for a particular cell, and from a glucose molecule 30 molecules of ATP are synthesized. Now you see that is for the for this biosynthetic cost, that is 10 to the power 10 ATP, how much molecules of glucose you need? That is 10 to the power 10 divided by 30. So this will give you roughly 3 into 10 to the power 8 molecules. That means that you need 3 into 10 to the power 8 molecules of glucose. 3 into 10 to the power 8 molecules of glucose for the synthesis of those particular biomolecules or macromolecules. So, and previously I have said that is you need 2 into 10 to the power 9 glucose molecules for building materials to double its mass. So you can divide these two glucose molecules in these two ways. That is, you need some building materials, and then you have to arrange those materials in the form of component of the cell. So because proteins, DNA, RNA, those are the components of the cell. So at first you need some building materials. Then from the building materials, what you have to do? You have to make different components of the cell. So 2 into 10 to the power 9 glucose molecules are needed for the building materials, and 3 into 10 to the power 8 molecules of glucose are needed for construction of the different components of the cell. So we can now say that it requires about 1/5 as much glucose just to pay for labor as it does to provide the actual building materials for constructing a new cell. So why the term 1/5? Because if you make a ratio of 3 into 10 to the power 8 molecules and 2 into 10 to the power 9 molecules, then this will give you approximately 1/5. So 3 into 10 to the power 8 divided by 2 into 10 to the power 9. If you consider 3 as 4, then it will be roughly 1 by 5. That is why we are saying that is 1/5. Its value is 1/5. 1/5 with respect to the value and 2 into 10 to the power 9. So that is why we are saying that it requires about the 1/5 as much glucose just to pay for labor. Why we are saying that is just to pay for labor? Because 2 into 10 to the power 9 glucose molecules, these are the glucose molecules which is required for the building materials, raw building materials. But 3 into 10 to the power 8 molecules of glucose are needed for constructing the cell, that is different parts of the cell. That is why this particular number of glucose molecules, we are referring them as labor charges. We are comparing them with the labor charges. Under less efficient growth conditions, the cost of the biosynthesis can actually exceed the cost of materials by as much as tenfold. So, these particular values can change with depending upon the growth condition. So, we are saying in this way, that is the cost of biosynthesis can actually exceed the cost of materials by as much as tenfold. Furthermore, in the estimates above, we have ignored the fact that macromolecules are constantly degraded and replenished inside the cell. This will surely increase the overall energy budget, but will not affect our estimates by more than an order of magnitude. So, I hope you have understood, that is how much energy is required for forming a cell. So, basically we have explained, that is how much energy is required by an example of protein, but similar calculation you can do for other macromolecules also. And the content of the lecture is from the textbook of Rob Phillips. So, I request the viewers to go through that textbook written by Rob Phillips and others for further understanding regarding this particular topic. And I also thank you who have listened my lecture.